Hey bosses, before we get started, I wanted to remind you that the Nomad Summit is coming to both Cancun, Mexico and Chiang Mai, Thailand this year. So go to nomadsummit.com for all the details and a chance at discounted tickets.
Welcome to the Travel Like a Boss podcast, where we interview location-independent entrepreneurs that travel the world like a boss by being their own boss. Here's your host, Johnny FD.
Hey everyone, this is Johnny and welcome to episode 230 of the Travel Like a Boss podcast. I have a really fun episode today with Calvin's son from Monsoon Diaries. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Johnny.
Man, I'm actually really excited to have you on. I heard your interview on the Badass Asian podcast. I think it episode 9?
Yeah, 9 is my favorite number.
Yeah.
So
and
episode 9.
I was interviewed on there on episode 7. So shout out to the Badass Asian Men podcast. And you just had the most interesting story. It was like, I mean, you're a doctor, you're an ER doctor, and you have a travel company, and you built all this while in med school.
Yeah, accidentally.
Yeah. And it was such a good interview. And I just wanted to get you on the podcast to talk a little bit more about the business side, but also the travel side, because I think there was so much to unpack that you guys didn't really even get into all the super interesting places you've been. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Yeah, the podcast, I think, was a big starter, but we didn't really go into, and I hope we have a follow-up one on like the finances and how I was able to do it practically as a medical student. No tricks, no cheats, just straight up brute force. And I feel like really honestly, if I could do it, anyone who's listening to this can do it too, as long as they believe in it. And so I'm excited to go, take a deeper dive.
Yeah, that's really cool. And shout out to Chris Kim from the Badass Asian Dudes podcast for connecting us, but also having us on his show.
Yeah, Chris, thanks for putting us together, Chris.
Yeah, and I think that was kind of the whole purpose of his community, is just to kind of introduce, people who are doing cool things together. And I think in your case, and probably my case as well, it has less to do with us specifically being Asian. I think we just happen to be Asian, but we also had some struggles that are probably a little bit different than, people from, that grew up from other ethnicities.
Right.
But,
yeah. I always try to say that I think we went from I succeeded despite being Asian American. I want to transform that narrative, or what you say in your show, transcend that narrative to I succeeded, or we succeeded because we were Asian American.
Yeah, because there's plenty of people who grew up, I don't want to say privileged, but like they still aren't traveling. So yeah, it almost doesn't really matter that much.
It's a mindset. I mean, would you believe, and we can go into this later, was I hated traveling. I hated the idea of traveling. And I only started traveling because I lost a bet. Like, was drag kicking and screaming. Yeah.
Really?
That is how I started out. Yep. Yeah. Same thing with the whole doctor story. I did not want to be a doctor. And it only became it because, as I spoke on the podcast with Chris, I lost a bet, drag kicking and screaming. And it was the best decisions I ever made. I'm like much more happy and grateful now. But I knew if I set out with those goals in mind, I don't think it would be as authentic or genuine.
Oh, that's crazy.
Now.
So what was your first trip?
My first trip, bar the whole family trips where my parents took me to San Francisco on a weekend trip when I was 4 years old. I wasn't even conscious at the time. Mm-hmm. Barring those, I would say my first real trip was Egypt in 2010 when I was 23 years old. My first independent solo by myself trip that I didn't expect to go on until 24 to 48 hours before I got on that flight. And that's a long story in itself. Prior to that, I did go internationally, but those are all with people, with friends, going along, wasn't really alone. So I count traveling as really you're doing it for yourself, not for other people.
Okay, that makes sense. And what was that bet? I'd be curious to hear about that.
Oh my God. Well, I'll be honest and I'll be perfectly clear. I was 23, I was a bartender, and this is not a rated PG story.
That's fine.
But I met someone while bartending and really liked the person I was serving. And I mean, it was a big party, and one thing led to another. She kind of stuck around the bar all night, and we became pretty close that night. It was one of those before sunrise moments, but in New York City. And let's just say the next morning, I finally had a conversation with her about how awesome the past 12 hours of each other were, and she agreed. But the issue was that she was about to leave for Egypt for about a month with her family. Uh-huh. And then it was fine. For me, I was like, oh, that's awesome. That's really cool. I'll see you when you get back, and we'll pick up when we left off. And that was it. Very innocent 23-year-olds in New York City. But then at the time, what was funny was I had two other friends also going to Egypt at the same time. So I thought, well, what a coincidence. You should meet them.
Yeah.
Let's see where this goes. Because I couldn't stop. I couldn't not think about like the possibility of them, three of them having an awesome time in Egypt through me. Like kind of like how Chris brought us together. Like it's, something that would be cool. So I introduced her to them. They actually did get along later that night. We were drinking, we're having fun. And of course, the three of them turned to me and I was like, well, you have to come with us. You should be the fourth person, And I was just like, no, I don't like traveling. Like, I'm from New York City, born and raised. The whole world comes to me. What is the point of spending all this money and time to visit places that you're not going to live in anyway? Because, New York City, that's where I'm from. And
yeah. So for a lot of people that don't know, like New York has food from every cuisine. So if you want to eat Ethiopian food, if you want to have Nepalese food, you can just go down the street. You don't need to go on a plane. And you have people from all different cultures. And it really is. Everyone dreams to go to New York, so why go anywhere else, right?
Exactly. And I refused. I was like, no, you're leaving in about, I think tomorrow, the day after, like really soon. And I just not prepared. And this is the dumbest request you've asked of me. Of course, it's an amazing idea. I'm going to go for the people, but definitely not for the sake of traveling. Like that was my mindset. I was a child. I was immature. I didn't really understand the concept of why people would travel and spend so much money doing it. I didn't even have the money. I was a bartender, just graduated college, didn't really have a career, and I was committed to being a bartender for the rest of my life because I was actually having a lot of fun. And, I did have the schedule. I could totally tell the bars I was working for, you know what, I'm not, don't need to, come in and, probably skip on up. But, I like this girl. I kind of did check, the bathroom through my cell phone where the prices were. And they were like $2,000, $3,000 round trip.
Wow.
And I was like, hell no. Yeah, fuck that. Like, seriously, I come back and I was like, no, look, see, I like you this much. I did check, even though I didn't want to go. I did check and it's not worth it. And he kept pushing me until I relented. I was like, all right, fine. I'll go if tickets are under $700. But I just said that to get them off my back, just as a joke. It was a flippant comment. I'll go if tickets are under $700, round trip, done. Stop bothering me. Let's keep drinking. Oh, we're drinking. And we kept drinking. And then we kept drinking. And they kept checking it. And it was still $2,000. It was $2,000. Went up to $2,500. And I was like, stop checking my phone. I need my phone back. It's running out of batteries. And then at 4 o'clock in the morning, last call, paid the bill, get up and leave. And I literally was like, have a fun time in Egypt. I'm really glad this worked out. Everyone just, go and send me photos, bring me back a rock, something, and give me my phone back. They checked it again, still $2,000. And I checked it again, still $2,500. Like, you see, it's not happening. And they checked it one more time, $650.
Wow. And was it the same flight that dropped because it was last minute, or what happened?
It was, no, so I was going on Skyscanner. Or it was the equivalent of Skyscanner. I think it was Kayak was the thing at the time. I think this was right before Skyscanner came out. But it was just a reloading, the third party website that takes the account all the, budget airline, or the, Bayama and Go Trip and Trip, Go to Gate, all those things collected together. And they were trying to find all of them and listed all of them. So it was just a bunch of different flights. I ended up, we were so, alcohol helps. They took that. Alcohol helps. So you make bad decisions. And at the time, that was the bad decision where we were like, whoa, $650. And I'm a man of my word. If I make a promise, I always follow through. I don't flake. And I bought it on the spot.
Nice. And it also sounds like it was fate. And it sounds like a great deal as well.
I guess so. I mean, it also helps to have the autofill thing when you type in the first letter of your name, the whole credit card information fills out by itself. So it wasn't that hard. I bought it on the spot, and then I was like, dude, I'm doing it. I'm done. And then the next memory I have is waking up the next morning to all these text messages to my friends saying you're going to go to Egypt. That was not a dream. We'll see you in Egypt. And they had left a few hours before me. They went on a different flight, and I went in a few hours after them. And I was told not to bring anything, not to pack anything. And when I arrived in Egypt, they met me at the airport, and they were like, Calvin, got some bad news. There's a reason why your flights dropped so low. What? So what was going on 9 to 10 years ago in Egypt?
Oh, yeah. I think, my sister had her honeymoon planned in Egypt at that exact time, and I think that's what happened.
So to be very accurate and perfectly honest, it wasn't the thick of things, but it was right around, it was the winter of 2010 where things were kind of getting a little dodgy. And I think that could have been the reason. But either way, the plan was to travel with them for 3 weeks. I would never be alone because I didn't know anybody. Nobody knew me. I didn't speak the language, and I didn't prepare anything. I literally had to drop everything and go. I called my bars and I was like, I'm not working. $700, $650 is a really good deal. And I thought I was going to be like housed and everything would be like, everything would be super cheap.
Mm-hmm.
They would get things from me there. I would buy my backpack there. That was not the case. They came to the airport and they're like, plans have changed. You're not going to be with us. You're going to be alone. One of the girls was going to join the protests. The guy was like, well, my flight's changed and it's kind of dodgy right now. I have to go to Israel like a couple days early, so I can't be with you. And the girl was like, my strict Indian family is not going to let me hang out with some boy I met at a bar. It's a family trip. So I was like, all right, well, this is news to me. So I lived at the airport. They were like, you got to go home. You got to change your flights and leave. And I was like, I just got here. And that was the plan. It ended that it would be that we would have one day together. And that's another story in itself, where we ended up having an epic morning by the pyramids, riding horses, the sunrise with the sound of prayer in the background. It was like another story itself that literally solidified my view on life, and we could go in that later. But it's essentially, I was left alone, and I had to make a decision on day 2 whether to stay or go back home.
Wow. So did this all happen in like New York airport, like JFK, or did this happen once you arrived in Egypt?
Once I arrived in Egypt.
So they let you get on that flight and they didn't explain all this stuff before you got on?
Well, it's a long 16-hour flight. I think they found out as I was in the air.
Oh man, that's crazy.
Yeah. They didn't have Wi-Fi on Egypt Air at the time, or it's still now.
That's crazy. But you know what? It's one of those make it or break it moments, right? Because there was a good chance you could have just said, "Oh, screw all of you, F you. You made me fly out here for nothing. I'm gonna get on the next flight home."
Nah, man. I mean, I think from the Badass Asian News podcast that I explained, like, I've been through enough shit in my life, the traumas, and even you mentioned in your episode where, you've been through enough. You just, when you roll with the punches, you let it roll off. But these things, the fact that I was in Egypt on a $650 round trip flight, you can either see that as like, what the fuck, in this entitlement. I'm not that person. I'm not going to be that chump where like, I believe that things should be handed to me. Like, I'm just grateful to be alive and in a different place on a pretty awesome deal for a round trip flight last minute. And the way I saw it, the perspective I chose was, fuck yeah, like I'm out of my element now. And they're my friends. Who am I? And I didn't blame them. So I just saw it as more like an opportunity. I mean, yes, this is how life is. You can choose. It's the same situation. This is situation A. And you can look at it as a situation A, or you can look at it from a different angle. It's X. It's actually a positive X, right?
Yeah.
And then you look at it from that, and you make an action based on that. That actually is the beginning of the rest of your life.
I absolutely agree. And I really believe that there are always two ways to look at something. My first trip to Thailand was actually very bad as well. I don't think I've ever even talked about it because it almost doesn't really matter that much now. Right. But when I went in 2007 or 2008, I didn't look at the weather, and I was planning to move to this little island called Koh Tao to go scuba diving. And I arrived, and it was the middle of a monsoon. And nice. It was, everybody was seasick on the boat, including myself. It was torture. We get there, the whole island is flooded. So all the restaurants are closed. It just it was terrible. We couldn't do anything, couldn't walk anywhere. So we left a few days later, went to Chiang Mai, and there something happened. I think it was some political crisis happened, and they were grounding flights, and there was protest, and all these things happening. And I remember the two girls I had met, and I was traveling from Koh Tao to Chiang Mai with, the two of them, but also every single other person in the hotel were just stuck to the news, just watching the news, thinking, oh my God, what's happening? When's the next flight? They're on hold with the airline, trying to get on the next, the possible plane. Nobody had any information. And I said to them, it doesn't seem like there's any immediate danger at all for us. We're in a completely different city. Just use this as a great opportunity to extend your trip and travel more. Your boss is going to understand. I'm sure they're going to watch the news. Just, if anything, email them, say, hey, watch the news. I'm not going to be able to get home tomorrow. And in my mind, it seems so clear just to go enjoy ourselves. But it seemed like everyone else just panicked and freaked out. And that was them choosing, option, A versus looking at the bright side of option B.
Right. I mean, I think we're getting heavy pretty fast here, but it's kind of like David Foster Wallace when he wrote This Is Water, that essay where you choose what to worship, right? Mm-hmm. Life happens, trauma happens. The thing what makes us human and what defines our lives is we actually have the power to choose how to see things. It could be totally fake. It could totally be total delusion, right? But for our well-being and our purposes and our future actions that do make an impact, I think what is important, and I believe what is important, is how we look at things, and we get to choose what we want to perceive in order to move forward. And you can either look at it in a positive way, or you can choose to be angry and be negative. And there's a little bit of both. I'm not saying you should always take things lying down and try to, you should stand up for things that are not right in a way that's it's confrontational if it's appropriate. But the crux is we have that power, right? If you really stop and think, you have the power to choose how you want to create your reality.
Yeah, definitely. And actually, so I was looking at your site, and there was a kind of like a photo that really stuck out to me where it says the average American spends $15 a day eating out. That's $450 a month, including drinks. That's about $600 to $750 a month. In 2 months, you can buy a ticket anywhere in the world. You can afford to travel. You're just too lazy to cook.
Yeah. And by that math, technically the way I budget and the way I research my flights, it's not every 2 months if you budget like that. It's every month.
Yeah.
I can find you a round trip flight anywhere in the world for $700 or less.
Yeah, it's insane. It really is insane. Like,
willing to cook. Yeah.
I mean,
it's insane. Definitely. It's just like people don't know. It's like when I went to North Korea, people are like, how did you go? Like, I thought it was impossible. Or like anywhere. Like, I just came back from Afghanistan a month ago as a tourist. And like, how did you go? I didn't know they would leave. It's like, I Googled it. I applied. I got my visa in a few days. It's like, literally, if you don't look, you'll think it's impossible. All you have to do is look. People don't even bother even taking that first step. And they realize that it's not as hard as it seems. It's just, we've been fed by everyone else in society and the media to believe that traveling is expensive and traveling is not traveling is a luxury and not an investment into our education. And then people just grow up their entire lives believing that, and that's the reality they choose to worship.
Well, one thing I always thought was really funny is how many girls I knew in back in college that had Louis Vuitton purses or like Prada purses, or, these expensive handbags, but they would complain that they didn't have enough money to travel. And I was like, you're holding a round trip ticket right there in your hands. Like, if you didn't buy that purse, you could have went to Paris for a week. And
that's the thing that that's all marketing. Realize like that's just all marketing. We are marketed to believe that we should find value in material wealth, material belongings rather than experiences. So we put that before, we put materials and our self-worth into things. This stuff, right? This anti-Marie Kondo stuff where things that just clutter our lives, the things that you own end up owning you. And then secondly, into experiences.
I really believe that. I really believe that.
Yeah, it's marketing. It's all about marketing. And we just have to twinge the narrative and market to ourselves what is valuable to us. It's all marketing. You can convince yourself. If you convince yourself that a Louis Vuitton bag is more worth it than a travel experience, then fine. That's what you choose to worship. That's what you choose to believe in marketing. But you don't have to. You can augment your marketing reception into something where you believe that traveling is more worthwhile, much more of an investment in your self-worth and your self-care than material belongings. It's all within your power.
Yeah, but I definitely think it's true. And I know it's true because I'm willing to bet that anyone, when they're 80, 90, 100 on their deathbed, they're not going to care about that purse or that, that material item that they owned when they were in their 20s or 30s. But they will remember that travel experience they had.
Oh my God, that's the exact same speech that I say, that you're on your deathbed and God or whatever energy you believe in or yourself is going to ask you, did you really make the most out of a life? What are you going to remember? And you're going to remember the experiences. You're not going to remember the nights where you got plenty of sleep or you saved up all this money to buy a bag or that you showed off your fancy car to somebody else. That it's not going to be as valuable as the person you met in a foreign country where you didn't speak the language, you fell in love, and you spent 24 hours together and you never saw them again. And those are the memories you're going to take with you to your deathbed. Those are the ones you're going to really make you feel. And everyone who listens is like, oh my God, this is so movie-like. Like, you really think it's going to happen to me? And I say, yes, I was a shy, awkward kid with a stutter who couldn't even, go to the beach because I was scared of the water, taking off my shoes and stepping into the sand, let alone talking to people. And I've had that happen to me. It's like one of the most popular entries on my blog where I ran to somebody in India and had a before sunrise, before sunset kind of, those are movies, moment. And, exchanged, it's I don't want to spoil it. Look for it. it has happened to me, those movie experiences, and it has happened to the people I've taken on these trips. I've left people in countries where they fell in love and stayed there for a year, and I would come back the year after to pick them up again because they had to say goodbye and finish, their school. But like, they had those experiences. Those movies, things can happen to you, has happened to my peers, and it's not just a select group of people. It can happen to even the shyest, most awkward kid who listened to Korn and Limp Bizkit and never it was the only Star Wars fan and never really had any friends until he was like 15. That's me.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if nothing else, when we travel, when we're somewhere else, not only are we in a new location, but we're really looking at life like through different lenses. We're more open-minded for new experiences. We're forced in situations where we have to, we have to talk to people that we normally would be too uncomfortable to try to talk to. But also, it's just kind of like you're excited. You want to have experiences, and when you're open to that, magical things happen.
Right. I think traveling, what happens is that you also take yourself away from your day-to-day routine back at home. And it's kind of like stepping away nose close to a painting, right? And you step away and you actually see the entire painting when you travel. You see your life back home from a bird's eye view perspective, and then realize all the shit at home is so small from far away. It's kind of like how astronauts, when they leave Earth and they see Earth as a small pale blue dot.
Yeah, I can definitely see that.
Humanity isn't this like small little thing. Why are we fighting? That's why it's so magical, because it's literally an out of body experience, seeing things from a different perspective from that angle.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I think if anything else, if nothing else, when we're in our routine, we're walking around with our AirPods and or our headphones on. We're not looking at people. We're not smiling. We're just going through our daily routine. So we don't really leave any room for wanderability, conversation even. But when we're in another country, very seldom are we walking around with our headphones on, like with our eyes closed. We're looking around. We're excited.
It's the fact that everything seems so new, right? What are our memories and our perception of time is that when we do the same thing over and over and over again, routines, time just goes by really quickly, because our brain actually, this is me, the doctor mode coming in. Your brain filters out repetition. So to you, like that round trip back, like that, that car trip to somewhere, when you go there initially, it feels like forever, but when you come back, you're like, feels like nothing. Your brain literally filtered that out. And that's why it's like, oh, like we're here. But when you travel, your brain is like new experiences. And that's why 1 to 2 days in a foreign country feels like a week or 2 weeks. And that's your brain working for you. That's why people feel so young still when they travel so much. Like, that's why they look so young. That's why they are so blessed and blissful, is because their brain is actually, it's a brain chemistry thing, when they're perceiving life in a more expanded view of time and experiences. We're getting really meta here.
Yeah, I like it. But okay, so I guess on that point, so you are a legitimate doctor. You're a licensed medical doctor working in ER. Is that correct?
Yes.
How do you because then you did this while going through residency and also med school, which is like, even if you never do anything else, it's like, it's torture. I mean, I actually had a friend who went to med school in New York, and I never saw him. He was always busy. My cousin's an ER doctor. She's always busy. She doesn't have time to travel. Like, why did you even make it a priority?
It's habits. It's how you start things off. If you grew up never believing that you have to brush your teeth, or if you grew up never potty trained, and then all of a sudden you have to learn it when you're like 20 or 30, it's going to be much harder for you as a 20, 30-year-old to learn to brush your teeth 2 times a day or pee in the toilet. Now, that's the same with how you start medical school. All right. If you go into it believing everyone else telling you shouldn't travel, you shouldn't take time off, you should focus 100%, and you be prepared to, say goodbye to all your friends and never see them again, and not go to any of the birthday parties that you're invited to, because that's how you survive medical school. And that's what you believe. That's the reality you worship. And that is the habits you start to make. And it becomes easier and easier to say no to experiences if you start off that way. Right? Now, I started off medical school because I lost a bet. Same thing with how I traveled the first time. I wasn't sure if I wanted to be a doctor. I did it because I wanted to prove to myself that I wasn't meant to be a doctor. I went in believing that I was not supposed to go in. And I expected to be rejected everywhere because I had a below average score, below average GPA, and I wasn't even taking it that seriously. And it was like, I mean, those of you who are listening who don't know my story, my dad wanted me to become a doctor. My mom wanted me to become a doctor. My dad died my mom got sick, I was actually free to do whatever I wanted. I mean, it was a very traumatic time in my life. I was completely like on my own at the age of 18, but I chose not to be a doctor. The whole Asian American narrative is like, oh, I'm going to fight against the stereotype. I don't want to be an Asian doctor. Like we all say, like, you know, don't just be a doctor, a lawyer, you know, you're so much more than that. And that was one of them. But then I realized, and this is the problem with thinking, is that to not become something because of a stereotype, because of a narrative, you're letting it win. Mm-hmm. You're letting the narrative and all Asians are doctors thing that so frustrates you. You're letting it control your life still. You're doing something because of that. Or in my case, you're not doing something because of that. And I didn't want it to have power over me. I didn't want my dead father, to control me for the rest of my life, that I was rebelling against him for the rest of my life by not being a doctor. What if I'm actually meant to be one? And this going roundabout logic, going back and forth, like, you know, the poison cup scenes from Princess Bride, which one is the real poison? I had no idea which was the real me. That's why I applied, hoping that I would get rejected everywhere, check that box off, and be done with the decision. And I was fine with that. But then when I got in, which was a whole like holy shit moment, like shit, I did not expect to get in at all. They were trying to something different. They wanted like different kind of doctors to go to you know, start the next generation of medicine where we're more people than and know how to talk to people rather than study from books all the time. I was one of those experiments. I was the imposter, and they were like, "Hey, we're trying something different. That's why you got in." I'm like, "Great! Now I have to like follow through." Remember, I said earlier, I don't flake. If I make a promise, I follow through. And I got into medical school. I need to make the most out of it. I'm not going to take this for granted. I know so many people would kill to be in my shoes right now. I feel so guilty actually getting in with that attitude. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to squander it. So that's why when I started off medical school, it was the attitude of I don't deserve, give it the best shot I can. And that being said, I also will not sacrifice my humanity to get to this point. Now, remember, I got into medical school, shit academic records and test scores. I got in because of the strength of my character and the things I did on the side that was not medicine. The whole leadership that I decided to continue my medical school experience by keeping to those non-academic activities. I would not sacrifice my social justice activities I was involved in. I would not sacrifice the filmmaking or the dancing I was doing. I would keep doing those things, and I'd rather fail out of medical school and still maintain my humanity than to quit everything that made me who I am, forget how to be a good person, become a doctor, and then try to relearn how to be a good person again. So just like your friends that you never saw again, went to medical school, they put a pause, they postponed their life, hoping that by the time they become a doctor, they would have the time to regain everything they've lost. And I don't believe in that. You could get hit by a car tomorrow, and that's it. Everyone will remember you as the person who went to medical school and forgot who their friends were, and then no one heard from them again until, you know, he got hit by a car. Yeah, well, that sucks. I had a friend who got breast cancer. Go ahead. Yeah, I mean, I had a friend breast cancer. She died in like within a month, right before she got into medical school, and I was like, that could be me. That's crazy. You know? So and even if you don't, medical school even if someone doesn't die, like people don't realize that when you finish, it's not like you have all this free time all of a sudden. Like you have probably even more responsibilities in your life. Oh, I'll travel when I, finish first year. I'll travel when I finish medical school. I'll travel when I get a promotion. I'll travel if you keep thinking like that, you'll never travel. Yeah. You're going to be married with kids, doing the whole, what society told you to do. And then you're going to look back and then you're going to say, shit, what have I done? That's postponing. Yeah. So I went into medical school, always living the moment, living now. If I had any weekend off, I would travel. Like, so what were some of those trips like in the beginning, that your first year of medical school? Where did you go? So the first week already, I had to go to San Diego for a wedding. But that's, people do that. Then the first month, I found a $400, $500 round trip flight to Hong Kong on a whim. And then I remember thinking I would be stupid, especially after what happened in Egypt, to not take this up. So I went to Hong Kong for 20 hours. Okay. 12 to 20 hours. And I left Friday night, JFK, came back Sunday late night, right before class on Monday. And then when I was like, oh my God, like this is possible. The Pandora's box was open, and I would travel to anywhere I can get. I went to Iran for a week between exams, and I went to Spain and Morocco. I took 10 people with me. Peru and Colombia for about 4 or 5 days. I would just make things work. Anytime that I didn't have class, Like there were definitely required classes. I would definitely go to all of them. I never skipped any classes that were required. I didn't want to get kicked out for no reason. I still did my best 100%. But if it was not required, I would leave 3 to 4 days at a time.
And
I would find ways.
Were you able to study or do your homework during that time?
Man, if you study on an airplane or in a foreign country, your brain retains information so much better than if you were studying the same damn library with the same books and cabinets around you. Your brain everything becomes a blur. Your brain doesn't know what to store. It's like this massive amount of information in the same environment. Your brain is actually better able to retain memory if you study in different environments, even if you lose time moving from environment to environment. The New York Times actually publicized a huge study so that brain can store information much more efficiently. And that's what I do with travel.
Yeah, and I guess when you're on a plane...
But I didn't do well.
Okay. But I mean, at the same time...
I didn't do well at medical school. I failed out. I failed out a couple of times.
But you eventually passed. But you passed. You didn't actually fail out.
No, I didn't actually fail out. There was one point where I was threatened to get kicked out or had to repeat a year. And if I had to repeat the year, I was just like, I'm done. Like, there's no way I can it was like right at the point where I was supposed to take the licensing exams in the middle of medical school. Step 1 is what we call it. Step 1 out of 3. And I was told that I had to remediate a class if I had failed it. And if I couldn't pass the remediation, I would have to repeat the year and I wouldn't have to take the licensing exams. And I'm done at that point. And every time, and I barely passed it. But the issue was that they always said it wasn't good enough to go to the next level. But every time they told me that, and I was prepared to, now travel full time and leave medical school, they always pull me back in and said, well, you know what? You're class president. You travel so much. You're an inspiration to wellness to all of our classmates. We love you. You've done so much for the school. You technically didn't fail. You're 67.56, which is below the passing grade of 68, but we'll round you up. But you'll never get into residency. And I was like, that's more than what I bargained for. So thank you. I'll take that. And every time I got kicked out because of traveling, I got sucked back in because of the traveling.
Wow.
That's ironic. Yeah. So it's you got to really trust yourself, right? The things that people fault you for are the same things that you will succeed because of.
Well, let me ask you this. Let's say it didn't go your way. They didn't round you up and you really were kicked out. And they said, sorry, your grades aren't good enough. Like, that's it. Would you have regretted it? What would you have done?
I don't know, man. It didn't happen. I think I went into the attitude. Remember what we said, we choose what to worship. I think right at that moment when I actually honestly thought they were not going to take me back or I was going to fail out in that June of 2012, I saw it as like, you know what? This is good. This will be my Anna Wintour Oprah moment where somebody has to fail big before they succeed. And this will be my big failure. And I was like, all right, this is my story. I failed out of medical school. Everyone's going to love that story. But then right as I thought that and I was ready to walk away, they called me in and they was like, just give it a chance. We'll take you back in. Take the remediation test. And apparently I passed it. I don't know how. And then I took my licensing exams and I kind of actually almost failed it. They were like, that your license exam was way too low to become a doctor. But it's passing. It's just, you're not competitive. And it's basically every day was a war of attrition. The next step, fail, get back up again. And it wasn't even that bad. I remember, I didn't see this as a bad thing. I was so privileged. I just kept the whole time, my attitude was, I am so privileged to even have this opportunity. Like, these are first world problems that I'm worried about this. There are people who can't feed their families, who have no roofs over their head, who are going through war. I was in Egypt during a very testy moment in their history. Like, that's real shit. And I'm here worried about am I going to live a life of travel or am I going to be a doctor? There were worse things to be worried about. So that's how I went into it. Just so grateful to even have a fighting chance.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. So I think a lot of people are probably wondering, how did you pay for these trips? I know you were finding cheap flights, but how were you even coming up with the $500 and then the money you would spend when we get to these places?
Well, first of all, I'm not too lazy to cook. I like cooking and I saved a lot of money on eating. However, I also love eating out. And that was tough because living in New York City, food is not cheap, especially even groceries to cook. But I definitely tried to cook as much as I could. I actually I was kind of savage being the student that I was. It was something I picked up in college. And I even went back to my alma mater where I went for undergrad. I went to college in New York City. And there would be these spreadsheets me and my friend would make on all the free food events in the medical school, the university campus, and my college. And I would go to all of them with Tupperware and be a savage, and just like how we take all the napkins in restaurants and all the cutlery in restaurants that are free. Did that with food. All right. And I would sublet my apartment when I was away, Craigslisted, have someone, visiting New York pay a couple thousand for the week or 2 weeks just to stay there, and then last minute stuff. And I would budget my trip so that would be much cheaper than whatever they were paying for. So I ended up making money while traveling, because who's going to stay in my place when I'm away anyway? They paid for my rent and for, my time being away. That was that was I did sometimes. I got paid tutoring in my medical school. I tutored people. I did public speaking. I would go to schools and tell people how I was doing it while getting paid honorariums. I did a variety of odd jobs. Bartending is one of the most useful skills you can do. You can work anywhere, anytime. Every time you need a couple $100 in a pinch, you bartend. Find a bar, work off of tips. You can get $200, $300 if you're fast enough and good enough and serve enough customers. And that's what I did. I learned how to be the best damn bartender I could be. Wow. So I would just hit, I need a trip. I go. And then also, I was also, I don't know if I recommend this, because I'm paying this off right now. But I'm now that I'm a doctor, it's not too terrible of a burden. But I took out more student loans to travel. I maximized. I went to the school and I was like, I need more money for books. No, I didn't. I didn't own a book. It was all digital for me. And the money for books, I put into my travel.
What was your total student loan debt when you finished?
$200,000.
Oh my God, that's insane.
So I'm at $140,000 now, and that's only been 11 months of being a doctor. So it's not bad. I'm paying off pretty quickly. I refinanced to 1.95%, which is below the return of if you do investments in the stock market ETF. So I don't have to pay it off too quickly anymore.
Okay, so nice. Okay, so there's another question. I'm assuming that, like most professions, the grades you get in school don't actually reflect how good you are at that job. I'm assuming that even though you barely passed the grade, the study portion, have you figured out a way to learn how to be a good doctor?
Oh my God. I always joke that I'm the worst doctor in the world because I almost failed all my tests, and I was a terrible standardized test taker, and my GPA was terrible, and I was ranked bottom half of my class in medical school. And I was lived by the mantra of P equals MD, pass equals MD. And the ironic thing is I was still class president. I got reelected class president, and even though I almost got kicked out a few times in residency for just my capriciousness and my focus more on travel than patient care, I ended up being a chief resident.
Wow.
And right now I work only per diem at 9 hospitals in New York City. I'm credentialed everywhere. I don't think I'm one of very, very few doctors who do this, because every doctor, once they graduate school, don't know, they've been in school their entire life. It's very tough to adults, so it's very easy to sign a full-time contract just to, minimize the path of, you're basically the path of least resistance to sign a full-time contract, because you spend your entire life schooling. For me, I was a little different. I tried to see world in a different way, and I tried to work only per diem, and I still work only per diem, no full-time contracts. And I actually work, on a full-time basis. I can work anytime I want. And I got promoted to a clinical professor as a per diem. That's unheard of. Wow. And I'm the supervisor for all the big city races in New York City within 2 to 3 months of starting to volunteer, just by sheer force of how I am with people.
So for a lot of people who might not understand those terms, with a lot of jobs, you can get paid more money and have more flexibility not being a full-time employee. I think the reason why people like to be full-time employees is you get some more kind of benefits, but also it's really stability. People are willing to lose out on a lot of things to have stability in their lives, knowing that they're going to have a steady paycheck, knowing they're going to have a steady job, versus when you're, let's say, a contractor, you can get paid a lot more money and have a lot more flexibility, but you don't have that stability. And it's probably the same as kind of not like a freelance doctor, but like a floating doctor, per diem doctor, right?
Right. It's kind of like reading the market. If there was an outgrowth of supply for doctors and very little demand, I would be able to do this. Maybe I still would. I don't know. And be okay with the lower pay. But right now, that isn't the reality. Reality is reading the market says there is a shortage of doctors right now. there are a lot of openings in underserved and underprivileged communities, which is what I believe in serving. Like I only want to help. And this is my background in social justice and progressive rights movement, is that I always want to help I always believe in giving as you go, right? It's not about giving back. Like I don't want to wait until I'm successful and then give back. I want to give as I go. Everywhere a little success I am, even though I'm not atop of the food chain, I would still try to pull the person behind me up with me. And that's what I see myself doing. Is there's so many openings right now where hospitals are desperate for doctors in underserved, underprivileged inner city communities. And that is where I fill in those holes as best as I can. And yes, as you're right, as an independent contractor, they don't have to pay for your benefits. Therefore, they pay you actually more per hour on a per diem basis. And for me, I don't need that much benefits. I don't have a family yet, and I'm grateful to not having too many health problems. So covering health insurance and dental vision is actually, not too bad as everyone thinks it is. And finally, security. Yes, I don't have the security blanket of a full-time job and a full-time contract. As much as I can drop a job and not work for a hospital I don't like, they can do the same to me. But because there's a shortage, the reality is anything but. I have too many openings to choose from. And I'm reading the waves right now. If there comes to be a time where there are too many doctors, then maybe I'll roll with the punches and try to, do something a little more full time. But then by then, Johnny, I would have worked at 9-10 hospitals around the city. I know exactly which one to marry, right? Mm-hmm. It's kind of like dating, right? After a 1 hour interview, people just want to become boyfriend and girlfriend because they're so scared of being alone. It's the security blanket. But is that really good for you? Is security always good for you? Or is growth? What is growth?
Yeah,
growth is doing something different. I'm being uncomfortable. So I don't want to get married after a first date. I need to date around different people to know which one's right for me. And then after 3 to 4 years, when I'm a little older and wiser and everyone's being picked up or whatever, and I kind of am ready to settle down, or I'm just more tired and don't enjoy the per diem life, I already have known who is the one after actual lived experience. And that's how I feel about traveling.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. Hey bosses, I hope you're enjoying the interview so far. Wanted to take a quick break to tell you more about the Nomad Summit. The one in Cancun is coming this October 11th, 12th, 13th, and 14th. It's going to be 4 days of fun in the sun, a reason to have tequila and tacos, beachside Mexico. And the reason why we chose Cancun is because it's an easy flight from anywhere in the US and also a lot of Europe. So go to nomadsummit.com and you can see tickets for the Cancun event coming this October 11th, 12th, 13th, and 14th, 2019. And if you want more information about the upcoming Chiang Mai conference, that's going to be January 17th, 18th, 19th, and 20th, 2020. Go to nomadsummit.com and you can click on Chiang Mai 2020 up on the top right, or take a look at the page for more information about the Cancun event. We would love to have you. We have some amazing speakers. If you like this podcast, you want to meet some of the previous guests, fellow listeners, and learn what's currently working to either start or scale up your online business, definitely come to the conference. It's one of my favorite things I do every year because the people that you meet at these paid events that fly all the way out to either Mexico or to Thailand, these people are serious. These people are very open and willing to help. So if you want to learn how to grow your business, make more money online, and be able to travel the world, definitely come out to the Nomad Summit. I hope to see you there. And so speaking of travel, so you've been to some really random but interesting places. So I was reading on your about page. So during your, is it the 4 years of med school? Like how many countries did you go to during that time?
During medical school, I went to traveled to 70 countries.
That's
and then
insane.
During residency, 4 years later, and during that 4 years of residency, 80 countries. So 150 total.
Wow. That's insane. Yeah. And like really random places as well, like Pakistan, Barbados, North Korea, Armenia, Arctic, Azerbaijan, like places I've never even heard of before. Why? I mean, I guess that's the question is like, how do you pick places and why do you travel so much?
It's like the Egypt story. How you start out, it can define the rest of how you do things for the rest of your life. So it's kind of like, losing your virginity the first time is a big deal, and defining your views on sex and sexuality. The same thing when I lost my virginity with traveling solo was those 3 weeks in Egypt where I found myself in a place that was totally random. That was the way I traveled, like pick a place totally random just because of a good price and 3 friends being there. It didn't matter the place, the people that were going, and the value that I saw in it. I could not judge a place until I got there. And right in the moment where I had to decide whether to stay or leave, I ended up deciding on a whim to stay for the next 3 weeks alone in Egypt. And during those 3 weeks, I actually ran into the girl that I met at the bar with her family, made her family love me, took her on a first date around Cairo alone until like from 6 p.m. to 7 a.m. the next morning, dropped her off by their parents. Her parents actually really liked me so much, they actually asked me to show them around for the rest of the day. So I pulled a 36-hour thing. And that is my first travel experience, man. Like, that was it. So of course my attitude for the rest of these countries was going to be, I don't care where it is. I'm just going to go for the experience and for the value, as long as it's a good value and the prices are good. It's like a buffet. How would you know what you like unless you try everything? A little bit of everything.
Yeah.
So that you know later which ones to go back to when you're fuller and have diabetes, and you have to be a little more like picky on choosing what you have to eat. But by then you have eaten everything and tasted everything.
Ethiopia, Kenya, Malawi, Mozambique, Swaziland, Lesotho, Zimbabwe, Botswana, Namibia. Like, these are like places I would guarantee that most listeners have never even heard of, yet alone been to.
I think they're all personal to me in some way. Like, for example, the first country you listed was Pakistan. So that was actually not as random as people like to believe. Outside looking in, definitely. But at the time, my girlfriend, I was dating a girl. She was half Pakistani, half Filipino. And her cousin on the Pakistani side invited me to dance and choreograph for her wedding in Lahore in Pakistan. Who am I to say no to that, right? Like, who am I to turn that down? Her cousin found out that I danced Bhangra. I lost a bet and ended up joining a lot of South Asian dance teams in college. So I picked up on all of that stuff. I lose bets often, and that's why I do these things. That's why I lose bets. I don't know where it would lead, but it would lead to opportunities. And I know now, like speaking on this podcast, this is one of them, right? Being here and talking to you was an amalgamation of decisions I made that I had no idea what the impact would lead to. And that's Pakistan, right? Yes, it may seem random on why I choose these countries, but if it's anything but, right? Her cousin found out I like to dance. I like to choreograph dance. Wouldn't it be cool to have a foreigner in Pakistan to surprise everyone? And why not invite him? And who am I to say no to that? And of course, I said yes.
That actually sounds pretty fun. I would do that too.
So that's like an example of all the countries actually that I go to. There's some little thing that just led me inadvertently there.
Okay.
I think every other country, there's something like, oh, my friend is in that area and he's inviting me for Iraq, right? I went to Iraq last May, like 5 months after ISIS fell. Obviously, everyone's like, you're crazy, you're irresponsible, right? And I was like, again, I can't judge a place unless I've been there. I don't want to just judge based on Western media. And I'm in Iraq actually because my friend happens to be there, from a friend that I know from the Netherlands. And he was like, hey, Calvin, you want to join me for a beer? Are you free? And I said, actually, I am free that week. There's no reason why I cannot go to Iraq to have a beer with you if you're inviting me. Remember, I don't flake, right? And the flights were very cheap. So, I don't want to go to my deathbed, as you said, and look back. And I was like, well, I could have went to Iraq, but I bought a nice handbag,
Yeah. Well, to be honest, like this type of, really kind of fast, almost extreme, like traveling, it really isn't for me. Like I'm the exact opposite. I like to go places, kind of settle down for 3 months at a time, really kind of take my time. But I respect what you do because I can see, you're living your life. Like I can see that this makes you happy. This is exciting for you. And I think there's a lot of listeners that might resonate exactly with this. They might be thinking, well, I have a corporate job, or have, I'm also a doctor, or I'm a lawyer or something. And I can't go to places for 2-3 months at a time and do the slow travel or be a digital nomad, but I still want to see the world. And you're just showing them that anything's possible.
Yeah, I think if I had a choice, Johnny, I would be doing what you're doing. I wish I could take time off to explore country thoroughly for 3 months at a time. However, I love New York City too much, and I do so many things that make me happy in New York City. Remember, I'm still that shy, awkward Corn Limp Bizkit fan, too scared to talk to people, too introverted. I'm now more comfortable putting myself out there. I actually enjoy it now. I have no issues talking to people, but that's because it's years and years of pushing myself. But I'm still that kid who loves New York City so much. I still find traveling, when I think about it, oh my God, I gotta go. But it's now like brushing my teeth. It's good for me. I have to do it. And once I do it, I'm grateful I've done it. Now, that because of all the things in New York City I have to do, like I do a little bit of real estate, so I kind of have to be here for that. I love my job as a doctor, and I love working in New York City in the ERs here. I have a lot of friends here. Like, I stay in New York, and a lot of people who are listening to this, they also may feel the same way. Like, I don't want to leave my family, my friends. I don't want to leave too far. It would be nice to live 3 months at a time. My proposition is, instead of choosing one or the other, why not do both, right? In the totality, as you said in your podcast, sometimes you do get tired after being, traveling too much. Sometimes you burn out a little bit, and then, go back. And, I think it's important to visit family or get your roots back. And for me, like, the amalgamation of how much I travel in a year is 3 to 4 months a year, right? I travel so often that 2 weekends or, a week at a time or 2 weeks at a time do add up to about 3 to 4 months a year. And I don't feel like I've ever left New York City because I travel to so many places so quickly. It's kind of like the buffet analogy. I'm young still. I don't have any medical problems yet. I'm not diabetic. I don't have high blood pressure yet. I'm, my early 30s. I should go approach a buffet and eat every single goddamn thing in the buffet as little bit and quickly as possible, including the desserts, including the high fructose crap that's going to be bad for me. Because if I, only spend if I only spent like 3 hours on the oxtail and ignore the rest, I could be missing out on the freaking lobster. But I don't know if I focus too much on the oxtail. So I try a little bit of everything, definitely not thoroughly exploring as much as you have. But then I feel like when I'm 40 or 50, when I have way more money, but then I have diabetes and a bad heart, I know exactly which ones to, focus on and enjoy because of an actual experience. And that's just my way of selling, this lifestyle to people who are not quite sure. Everyone is so black and white, A or B, A/B testing and whatever. I say, why not do both? Why not? Why can't there be a C option? I mean, It's not always, but it's just something to consider because you don't want to look back and feel like you missed out on C.
Well, I think a lot of people, their problem is that they don't choose A, B, or look for a C. They just say, "Oh, well, it's not for me because X, whatever excuse or reason," and they just don't do anything.
Excuses. Yes. No, that's another thing. You're totally right. And beyond that, there's people don't even choose. They just do Z, which is the thing that everyone tells them they should do. You should get a job, you should get married, and you should have kids. This traveling thing, that's just a luxury. You do that when you're like retired, right? When you're old and have diabetes and high blood pressure and you're too old to even travel, you should travel. That's when you should travel. That's Z. That's what everyone believes they have to do. And that's the path of least resistance. And again, we go back to the whole Louis Vuitton handbags. That's the marketing. That's our society telling us. When we grow up, our parents tried to teach us what is good and what's wrong in their view. They're trying to protect us, but their love language may not be what we're meant to do. They have good intentions. It's security, but sometimes security is not what we need. And once we leave the nest, we're so habitually, defined by the things that we grew up in. We always stick to security. And it's not until something traumatic or some huge, humongous feat of self-awareness that very few of us have, where they are able to finally challenge themselves, break themselves out of the comfortable habits that they grew up with, and then choose something that's like totally foreign and uncomfortable. And it's either something super traumatic where somebody has to die or you get broken up with or you lose your job, where you're like, fuck this, and you do something different. But that might not happen to everyone. And I don't wish that on people. I don't want people to go through traumas. That's horrible to wish that on my friends and loved ones, but that's what it takes. Or you could take this time, if you're listening to this, to listen to our stories and say, you know what, enough is enough. You are young enough to take a risk right now. Those are the people I have the most respect for. When everything's going so well for them and they have the courage to see, despite it being so hunky dory, they can actually say no to that and quit things and start their lives in a different route.
Yeah. That's funny. Like what you had just mentioned, you would think that like rationally or logically, when things are going well and they're not stressed, there's no big fires in their life, that's actually when they should, pause everything and travel a bit or do the things that they've always wanted to do because there's less of a risk. Yet that's not, when people are comfortable and things are going okay, that's not when people take big chances. It's when things are going terrible and they're like, you know what? Yeah. I'm broke. I lost my job. I'm going to spend the last, $1,000 in my bank account on this trip because I have nothing else to lose. But why not do that when you have the extra $1,000 or you have stability?
Right. It's kind of like the stock market, right? It's kind of like Fight Club and the opposite extreme of things. When things are going too well, people get too comfortable. Or in Fight Club, when things are going horribly wrong, that's when you take a stand in your life and do something epic. And I'm a product of trauma. Like the things I do in my life are a result of something that happened to me when I was really young. And I was like, holy shit, I have to like, make up for it. But then I said like, you know what, this is the opportunity to like break some habits, and because I have nothing to lose, so fuck it, and did everything opposite. Right? I could have went one way or the other, but that was an opportunity. I have so much respect for people who trauma has yet to happen to them, and yet they still have the courage to look at something good and say, you know what, I don't need this anymore. Let me try to take a risk, despite the fact I'm not sure if I'm capable of doing that. And that's why I make a habit of, even when I have what I have right now in New York and have finished medical school and residency, I'm a full-time doctor, I'm still taking risks and, traveling as much as I can, not always having to work and try to buy fancy things, but rather constantly create a habit of being comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And I think, whoever's listening, whatever situation you're in, if you're happy, if you're genuinely happy, then you've made it. So congratulations. But if you're not happy, you wish you can travel, you could wish you can do this, or you wish you can do that, don't bitch about it. There's so many ways to do it. And that's why I have this podcast. And that's why I bring on people like Calvin, who, even though your travel methods are so different than mine, I like showing people that there are different ways to live this life. Your business is completely different than mine. Your lifestyle is completely different, but it just shows that even on both extremes, there's something for everyone. And I guarantee every single person listening, your reasons or your hardships or your circumstances are not as unique as you think. I think we all have reasons or excuses, but I think that's what they are. I mean, I really think that everyone has excuses, and there's always a way around it.
No matter how different we do things, Johnny, I think we're in the same family. You have the same mindset and philosophy. And I was listening to your episode, and I mean, this is like a love fest here going on, but like, it's really true that that you and I have the same goal. We just have different ways of going about it with the same attitude, and that's fine. That's how we're going to win this war for Asian American war. And when I mean war, I mean like this whole like Asian Americans standing up for themselves, being self-aware, and creating coalitions and being positive. This good war, that we need to get out of this notion that we're constantly victims. I'm a progressive rights activist. I'm, social justice activist from day one. Vincent Chin and Asian Americans being, standing on the shoulders of Black rights and the Black rights struggle, and that we should be working together. Now, the issue with that was that when I was doing it was, yes, there were a lot of conferences and forums where people highlighted the issues and the problems, which I thought were so valuable. But then the next step was like, but what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? And people didn't have a concrete solution. They knew what they wanted to change, but there's no concrete plan. And I think over the years, we now have actual fruits of people's struggles when they're going like, I now see the problems. Let's do it my own way. I'm going to do it my own way. And yeah, the hardships are the people who criticize the way you're doing things. Oh, you're doing it wrong, or you and your privilege, is only getting you that far, and so on and so forth. And that's great. Like, we need that feedback, but only the strong who are self-aware, who are able to look at themselves in the mirror and say, I know what I'm capable of, and I can take the criticisms and turn something good out of it. I do appreciate that people care this much and see the good in it, so I can keep doing it my own way. That's what leads to what we have today, where there's such a big, improvement in, and there's still work to do, but there's so much of an improvement in our fortunes as Asian Americans and Asian American men, and, in a holistic, positive way. We're not putting other people down. We're not criticizing women. We're not feeling entitled to anyone or anyone's bodies or identities. We're doing it our own way because it makes us happy. And at the same token, we're not ignoring the people behind us. That we want to bring them up as well.
I'm a big believer that if we all just be the best version of ourselves, regardless of our backgrounds, our race, our ethnicity, or our gender, if we just everyone's just the best version of themselves, eventually everything works itself out. And to be honest, I'm actually really glad I'm not living in the US right now, because there's so much going on. And I actually had to stop listening to the Joe Rogan Experience, even though sometimes I really like his guests. It's because it gets me outraged sometimes on all the, the things happening. And I'm like, oh man, I am so glad I can just kind of ignore most of these problems and just live my own life, sometimes even being in countries where they don't speak English. I'm just like, this is nice. I don't hear anyone's problems. and I can just be the best version of myself as I can.
Yeah, without the distractions. I mean, good for you, man. I really am happy for you that you're able to have like the courage to to know like this is what you need and step away, because so many people don't know that, and they get just circle the drain of not being aware that they need to get away from it. I mean, why do you think I travel so much? I mean, every other weekend I'm leaving on a 3-week trip to Eastern Africa, leading a group of 10 people in about 2-3 days. And I mean, like, I need this. Otherwise I'm going to burn out. However, for me, like, I are different too, that I love the fight. I love getting involved. I love rolling on my sleeves and getting into the trenches of, fighting for progressive rights and, doing what I can do in the behind the scenes as a privileged Asian American physician. With all my privilege and fortunes, I need to do something with it. And I feel like, if I left for too long, I would just feel like, restless. I wanted to fight the good fight. And we all need to recharge, because for me, like, I'm stepping away for 3 weeks. Like, I gotta, tune out, and I do this every month. So it's not like I'm always there, but like, we got to take care of ourselves first before taking care of other people.
Okay, that definitely makes sense. I definitely agree with that. Okay, so two really random questions. One is, you spend so much time on planes. Do you dread getting on a plane, or are you still excited to be on it?
That's a great question. There were some times last year where I was like, fuck, I'm on a plane again. Like, God damn it. Like, first world problems for sure. Like, I was like punching myself. Like, what's wrong with you, Kevin? You're on a plane. You're living the dream. But there was that emotional thing. You can't control your emotions. You can be aware of them, and you can try to ponder the meaning of them. And my emotion at the time was burnout. Like, I don't want to be on another airplane again. I don't want to go through the whole rat race of lining up, getting off, deboarding, passport stamp. But you know what? It's kind of like brushing your teeth, right? I know that this is good for me. I know that when I'm back home and I look back at the experience, I will be so grateful I had it. I just feel like such a badass that I pulled this off, even when I knew the time, like, it was just so tough to do it. Then I can know I can handle the difficult things. By the same token, Johnny, I do churn credit cards. I am the whole mileage, miles person, million mile flyer. I collect, Chase Sapphire points and Amex Platinum points where I pay for dinners and get 3 times the travel dining. So every now and then I do get to fly business class.
Nice.
And that I never have problems with.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest difference between flying business class and economy, is looking forward to the flight, or, bearing it, or sometimes even dreading it.
That answers your question. How can I afford this? Well, if you pay for everyone goes out, right? Everyone goes out to have dinner. Even I do. I love cooking, but I take people out to dinner. Buy everyone's dinner. Like, I got this. This is on me. And you just pay it on it. And then you have everyone Venmo you back. Just like, actually, can everyone like pay me back $10, $15? Yeah, no problem. Like, they were, I was about to do anyway. Some restaurants don't even take more than 4 credit cards. You do that, you have 3 times the miles for every time you go out and eat, right? And you pay for everyone's meals and have them pay you back. You pay for your share, just your share, right? You're not like spending too much money, but you get 3 times the mileage, You do the same thing with traveling. You do the same. It just all adds up. And eventually you're going to have all these miles to fly. If you don't want to fly business class, you can literally fly free for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm. Right? Any other kind of like tips you do? Like, let's say you're flying economy and it's a long flight, it's 13, 14, 18 hours. Do you like to go carry on only? Like, do you bring a neck pillow? Like, what do you do? So old habits die hard. I only do carry on only. I never check anything in. I want to hit the ground running. I don't want to wait at baggage claims. You lose all the prime spots for, the cabs and, getting out of the airport and meeting the traffic, and you get to start the trip early. So I never check in. I only do carry on in my backpacks, and I always have a neck pillow, but it's a special type of neck pillow. It goes it's inflatable, so it's very easy to pack, but it goes around your entire body. So it's like you're cuddling something. It's like it's like an L, or what is it called?
It's like a giant penis.
Giant penis, inflatable neck.
It's like a giant penis. It goes around. It's like a sash that you wear around diagonally, and you can just cuddle with it. At the same time, I'm wearing a turtle. Like the neck brace, like a seat collar, and you see in an emergency room.
Okay, what is it called? I'm dying to look at this.
The turtle. There's the turtle pillow, TRTL.
Okay.
And then the travel, I think, buddy pillow, which is like this thing that slings around.
Wow. Okay.
I don't think it's called the travel buddy, but you know what I'm talking about. You'll see it. It's you can cuddle with it.
Okay.
And I have both of those. I have both of those on, so my neck is never. I'm a head bobber. so my neck is always up.
Okay, so
I always do window on
Uh-huh.
long flights and aisles and short flights.
okay. Well, why do you like windows on long flights?
So nobody has to bother you when they want to go pee.
Okay. I like the aisle because I like to get up like every hour just to stretch and sometimes I don't even really need to pee, but I just like pretend I need to pee and it's just so I can walk.
Yeah, I agree with you. I like aisle 2 for the longest time, but then realized when I started doing windows, like I just started doing windows like a year ago. I was like, wow, I got a little more space and I can lean against the wall and nobody wakes me up.
Yeah, and it's better to sleep. Okay, I can see that.
I pop in some melatonin. I have wax for my ear so I don't have to hear anything. And I put on obviously an eye mask that's really thick. Lewis and Clark is my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
And I always take off my shoes.
Yeah, I do as well.
Yeah, and you minimize the blue light. So no movies, no food, if you really want a good night's sleep.
Oh, wow. So you actually you try to sleep on all the flights?
I try to like knock out. I try to reset. Well, the thing is, like, if I'm trying to get into their time zone, like I'm leading this trip coming up to Tanzania, so I might have to stay up a little bit so I can get into their time zone quicker. So I will watch the movies. I will eat the food. But if I feel tired, I just listen to my body and I just knock out.
Okay, I like it. And like, okay, and any other kind of random tips? Like, do you use Google Fi so you have internet like wherever you land, or T-Mobile?
No, I'm on Sprint. I have Sprint, so they have this great international plan that I didn't know about until 2 years ago. So I was on airplane mode when I didn't need to be.
Okay.
Never got a SIM. I don't believe in traveling while connected. My first 2 years of traveling, other than to blog, which I actually did it on my laptop without any internet, I believe not being connected, no cell phone, no connection. Nobody can bother me. Nobody can reach me. I can't reach anyone. That's truly being cut off, because I think that's the best way to travel when you're like completely naked and alone. That is a way, it's tough. It is the toughest, and it is the most, it is the most nerve wracking, and it's the closest to having you like break down and like totally lose it. But however, it is the fastest way to becoming your own best friend, right? If the only person you can talk to is yourself and you have no means to reach anyone else and they can reach you, you have to force being alone with yourself. And of course you come out of that experience, you're going to be like, you know what? I'm fucking awesome. I can eat alone. I can travel alone. I can do this alone. It's all me. I didn't need anybody. Well, I'm a fucking badass. That is the attitude you come back with. Now, if you are going to be connected, I do recommend like the whole, T-Mobile's, everyone loves it. I'm on Sprint, which has this great international plan, and it's free everywhere. I get data everywhere, 3G, in most countries, even in Afghanistan.
Wow.
And
okay.
So Sprint is mostly business facing, not client, like personal customer facing, like Verizon is. So that's why Sprint has so many connections, because they're just focused and investing in like dealing with businesses. That's why they are so international.
Okay.
And that's why their signal sucks in New York for personal customers. But that's fine, because I like Sprint enough. I don't want to be too connected.
Okay.
What else? Yeah, I don't get SIM cards, so I can't really say too much on that.
Yeah, like again, so different than what I do. But I could also see that if I was going on a trip, like a short trip for a week, or I would and I have a normal life back home. This is kind of a way to completely unplug and be completely immersed for those 6 days you're away.
Right. I would say that if you want to make travel your priority, don't pay for that TV. Don't pay for cable. Don't pay for video games, fancy dinners, nice clothes. Don't pay for gas. That's a big one. I think once I started budgeting, I wasn't even aware how much money I was saving until I had to consciously cut those things out. Even like, as we talked about, like Sprint and everything, I paid like the cheapest rate. I don't, want to spend too much on my cell phone bill, just enough to have service. And that's, adds up. And it's kind of like investing. I mean, this podcast could be about investing, where, saving money and not spending on things is a form of investment. Yeah. It grows your money.
Yeah. And actually, so one thing that you had mentioned earlier about renting your place out while you travel, that's another reason why the things that we own us, because the most common excuse that I hear from people and why they can't rent their place out, while they travel, especially if they're going on a long trip, like for a month or 2 months, is because their stuff. They're afraid people are going to touch their stuff. They're afraid people are going to break their stuff. And in my mind, I'm like, it's just stuff. And they're paying you thousands of dollars to use your stuff. Like, it just does not make sense to me. But people get so attached to things that they've bought where they just can't leave it.
Step 1, watch Marie Kondo. Step 2, throw all your shit out. Step 3, travel and rent out your place.
Is Marie Kondo the Japanese?
The Living Joy. Yeah, the Japanese lady living with joy and cutting things out.
Yeah, like the
You know,
declutterer.
Exactly, the declutter, the one that you like look at your stuff, you put it all in a pile, and then you start throwing everything away, and you only keep the things that bring you joy. That hugely resonated with me, and I realized I didn't need half of my stuff, and oh my God, gave them all away. It's great for taxes, huge tax deduction. I declared all of it. I was donating it left and right, and you saved a lot of money as well on taxes. And I realized I didn't need that much stuff, and it's actually the same thing with traveling. How you pack is like an analogy for life. Do you really need all that stuff on a trip? Like half the stuff that I used to pack one of my earlier trips, I was like, I never wore this shirt. I wore the same shirt every day and I was happy. And I still look good. And I didn't need to pack the going out clubbing. I didn't need more than one pair of that or nice shoes. And that's actually saying that's beyond this podcast. There's a saying, when you go pack, lay out all your stuff and take twice the money and half the clothes.
Yeah. I definitely agree with that. And the biggest money saving tip in the world is just not to buy things in the first place. Like it sounds so simple. Like it sounds so simple.
Oh my God. Yeah, don't buy souvenirs. Why are you buying souvenirs? Oh, I need to collect everything. So fine, that's cool. That is your thing. I don't want to shit on it. But I swear to God, the stuff that happened from North Korea or Afghanistan thinking it was so cool. I don't know where it is right now. I know it's there. I didn't give it away. I didn't Marie Kondo that yet. But it's there. It's somewhere in my basement. I never had to look at it ever again. And it was just useless. And at the time, I thought it was so cool. Souvenirs. I'm going to like use it to brag. No, souvenirs just take up room. Take your memories with you. Like,
no one gives a shit.
Memory loss?
And nobody wants the souvenir, crap that you brought back for them. Like they wanted to go on that trip. Like you bring back some trinket from there that you have to lug around and pay extra luggage for. Like nobody cares about it. Like either bring back something that they can eat, like some candy or something, or just take photos.
Right. And then even I would say like, and this is the guy that I have a DSLR on my hip when I take photos. So it's everywhere. I love taking photos. But I would even go a step further and say, same with photos. Like, do you have short-term memory loss or something? Like, don't take photos of everything. Like, if I had to choose between a photo or souvenir, I would choose the photo. But even then, go take the next step. Just challenge yourself. Don't take the photo of it. Don't take a photo of something beautiful. Just take it all in. Really just take in all the sights, smell, sounds, and leave it at that. And it would be so much more valuable to you if you take a quick photo. Because then if you took a photo, you wouldn't appreciate it as much. Same thing with social media and how we use travel and social media. Please, for the love of God, don't make it a story. Just take it in, make it your story. I know this is like foreign languages for some people, but it really makes a huge difference in your travel experience when you're unplugged, disconnected, and you consciously choose to be in the present and not have to take a photo. Yeah,
I could definitely see that. For me personally, I like kind of a hybrid version where I'll take a very quick photo and then put my phone away. And I think the worst thing someone can do is spend 5 minutes, taking that photo, like uploading it, writing the description, looking for that, putting the hashtags down, and then they never even experience that moment. For me personally, I like having that moment of, 3 months or 6 months or 2 years later, going back to those photos and be like, oh yeah, I do remember that. But
like, like, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong, Johnny, you and I are the same person. Like, I love to take photos of it. I have like literally a DSLR attached to my hip. I have a strap. It never leaves my side. I take photos of everything, but I would find myself coming back and I'd be like, that was it? Like, I didn't really. So I'm trying something. So this is like the worst person giving this advice, right? People who know me are literally rolling their eyes right now. Like, Calvin, you're the person who takes photos of everything. And I get it. But that's the thing. I am super self-aware. I'm trying to be better, and I'm trying this new thing of not having to take a photo. And I think I did it once or twice, and it was just so much more impactful. And then I still took a photo of it. I went back and took a photo of it. But by the time I was like, you know what, I'm going to try not to. And it was a great feeling. Then I took a photo of it. So not the best, not there, but it's just a challenge. Not necessarily means like you have to do it all the time.
Yeah, no, I definitely understand.
But the person who takes an hour on their Instagram to take a photo, you know who you are. I know exactly who I'm talking to. A lot of them do travel with me.
Yeah, I'm the type. I'm like, if you take 2 photos, maybe 3 max. If you don't look good at any of those 3 photos, you're probably just not as good looking as you think you are. So just let it be.
Yeah, it takes away from the experience of just being in the moment. I'm a big proponent of being present when you travel.
I definitely agree. So one of the things I really like about your travel blog or travel company, monsoondiaries.com, is that it started as a personal blog. and you just started inviting people along on a trip. It wasn't even a travel company. It was literally you saying, hey, I'm going to go, to this place on these dates. If anyone wants to come along, you're welcome to. And now it's kind of more of a hybrid where it's not this big travel company that has the same tours every weekend or every month. It's literally still you saying, hey, I want to go here. Who wants to come along? Like, you have to pay for it now. So I'm not going to do it for free, but it's not going to be like a package tour. It's going to be like a small group trip.
Wow, thank you. That was like the most accurate description of what I do. I think that's like more accurate to how I struggle to describe what I do, because I still to this day have no idea what I'm doing. And it is successful. It is huge. It is like, paying for itself in a way that I did not expect. But I still have difficulty describing that. And what you just said, literally just like, holy shit. Like, yeah, that sounds great.
Well, feel free to cut that out and then use it for your advertising.
Thanks, man. No, That was amazing. Like, but yeah, I think the more accurate description was people were inviting themselves to my trip. And who am I to say no? I love a good party. I'm going to eat at this fancy, nice new restaurant. Who wants to come along and share the experience with me? So we can order more food and share different dishes and try new things, right? And it's kind of like that. Like, I'm going to this country. If I go alone and nobody wants to come along, fine. Go fuck yourself. I'm going to have fun. But if you do want to come along, I'm happy to do all the work and, take you along. But in all seriousness, like, I do have a lot of friends in different networks that I'm grateful to have met over the past, few years through traveling. And that was actually created from a foundation of friends that I made while, before I started traveling. And that was like my life as, an activist and, college student and then also medical student. So different pockets of friends, and they would just watch me blog as I would travel. And for those of you who are wondering, like, how did he do it? They're still wondering, like, oh my God, like, he says all this, but how do I know, he's the real deal? I actually blog every day, starting from the first day of medical school up until I graduated. All those 8 years, everywhere I went, I would blog every day while on the road, every day I'm in the airport, every day when I got back, every day, every moment where I was like, I'm going to miss this class or this test. Oh my God, I'm freaking out typing this blog in a cab on the way from JFK. I would blog it. So it is documented. Everything is spread out like a piano keys, right? It's there for you to look at. And you can see how over time, how I was traveling alone, one or two people, and you could see how from the comment section in my subsequent blog posts, few and more people started asking, oh my God, this is cool. Can I join along? Someone who would post in the comment section, let's say her name is Jessica, right? I don't know you, but what you're doing is amazing. And then 3 blog posts later, you see Jessica on a trip with me.
Oh, that's
right?
cool.
That is what I do. Yeah, that is what I never will say no to someone who has good intentions and wants to come on a trip. And unlike other travel bloggers who I have so much respect for, I don't think having more people on a trip weighs me down or gets in the way of my brand, because I honestly have no idea what my brand is. I just go about it organically and authentically, and I let the brand define itself. And I've let the people who have believed in me since the very beginning define that for me, and I'm grateful to them. So yeah, now it's turned into this monster with this community of, I would say, the self-created community of international travelers on the world who, travel with me every 3 to 4 weeks, and turn my travel blog, which it still is, into an accidental travel company.
I like it, man. And I wish more people would do something like you do. It's kind of like these, it's that middle ground that's missing, because it is beneficial to go with someone who actually knows what they're doing and has experience. Because a lot of people, they are legitimately scared to travel alone. They want to be in a group. They want to be with someone who, even though they haven't been to that country, like they have some experience, but also not be on a fucking package tour, which is like the worst thing anyone can go on.
Yeah, Johnny, somebody said, like, what's the next step? Are you going to scale? Are you going to scale? Like, this thing is huge. This thing's huge. And I'm like, if I scale, it's going to turn into a tour company with package tours. And it is over. Like, I would detest myself. That's when I start having regrets. Like, no way, right? I don't want to scale. I mean, this whole mantra actually of entrepreneurship, there was some, and I don't think it actually applies 100%, but build things that don't scale. Like, that is an actual thing. Build things that don't scale. Do it because you love doing it. And I think the issue with the entrepreneurs is that they always go about things saying, I want to be an entrepreneur. I don't know what the idea is. I don't know what the product is, but I want to be an entrepreneur. Then it's a top-down approach. It's not organic. It's not authentic. And it's insincere. Like if I set off saying, hey, Johnny, I want to create a travel company. I want to start out with a travel blog and doing those things. People will be like, gross. Like this guy is car salesman-y, insurance salesman-y kind of guy. Don't really want to sign up for this like faux entrepreneurship wannabe thing. I still don't want to get into that or to fall into that trap. I still want to be authentic and genuine. And therefore I've stuck to staying small as a one-man operation in terms of logistics. I've expanded in that I do now have guides, right? But they all have their own day job and they can lead trips whenever they want, but only whenever they want and they're ready to, and they get a free trip out of it. And if you want to lead trips for me and get a free trip out of it, come travel with me and see if we're on the same wavelength. And so it's all yours. Like it really is. Like I'm not here to play games or try to undercut anyone. I'm not doing it for the money, right? I have a job as a doctor. So the issue is this is not like a life or death. I'm not going to sacrifice anything.
Yeah, I'm sure you're well paid as a doctor. So this is definitely a labor of love.
You know, I'm comfortable. I'm comfortable. You know, I'm very grateful. I worked hard to get here, but Monsoon Diaries is not in it for the money. We're in it to create access for those who feel like they cannot travel. And most of the people who do come on my trips are first-time travelers and people who've been on like 10 trips with me.
Yeah, that's dope. I like that a lot. So yeah, I hope to see you somewhere in the world. I probably won't be coming on any of these trips anytime soon, but I'll be
We'll swing by where you are and we'll have lunch. How about that? You know, that's how we do it. Like there are a lot of people in our community who's like, you know what? I traveled with you, Calvin, and it's too insane. It's too crazy. Or like, you know, like I wasn't relaxed. Some of them come back and saying like, I'm having the shakes. I'm going to withdrawal. This is the only way I can travel. And some of them stick to that saying like, nope, I like my 3 months into place. But you know, it was impactful. It was like a memorable ex relationship, you know, like I don't regret it. If you're ever in the area, let's have lunch. Kind of like an ex-girlfriend or ex-boyfriend that you're on good terms with, you know? So it's totally fine to not subscribe to our way of travel. It's not for everyone. I always tell people that before they come on my trips, but by all means, we're all part of the same family. We're not trying to tear each other down in how we do things. We all do things differently. At the very least, let's meet up, let us drop by and have lunch and create another travel story. Because a night out on drinks with you, man, like with my group, if we ever come to where you are, whether it's Georgia or, you know, wherever you're going next, or Thailand, I know that's your favorite country.
Yeah.
Let's get a story. Let's make it happen.
Oh yeah,
or
for
we
sure.
can go visit. Yeah.
For sure. Anytime we're in the same city, let's definitely hang out. I would love to.
Yeah, I'm everywhere and nowhere at the same time. So just like Iraq, man, John, all you gotta do is invite me out for a beer, and if I'm free, I'm there.
All right, cool. Well, I'll be in LA and San Francisco this, I think, September. So if you're around, I'd love to see you.
September, I'm in Greenland.
Oh, nice. Well, I'm sure we'll figure out a place somewhere in the world. But yeah, thanks so much for coming on the show. If people want to find you, what's the best way to reach out?
I'm best reached personally through Facebook, Calvin D. Sun, and my website is monsoondiaries.com. MONSOONDIARIES.com. Monsoon like monsoon wedding, and diaries like motorcycle diaries.
Very cool. I'm sure everyone's dying to know, what does Monsoon Diaries mean?
Monsoon Diaries is the weather pattern. It's basically inspired by, well, it was actually inspired by Monsoon Wedding and Motorcycle Diaries. I just watched Monsoon Wedding and I just watched Motorcycle Diaries. It's a natural fit. But the travelers who came on my first few trips and the way I was traveling and leading them on tours, and it's kind of funny, Johnny, you say that I know what I'm doing. People sign up for my trips because I don't know what I'm doing. They want that authenticity of a backpacking trip as if they were traveling alone. It's group travel for people who hate group traveling. They don't want to feel like they're in a package. They want to feel like we're in this together as if we've never done it before, which we haven't, and we're figuring it out together, and it's much more fun that way. And we see everything that we have to see. It's just there's so much more spontaneity. And that being said, what does that remind you of? What weather pattern does that remind you of? A monsoon. It comes out of nowhere. It covers everything in a short amount of time, and it pieces the fuck out. And it's it's not a stormy thing like a typhoon where it causes death and destruction. Monsoon is a celebrated weather pattern in many parts of the world. It's something that brings the harvest. It's something that people do and have weddings in as auspicious signs for a wedding and a good marriage. And it is, heavy and a downpour of rain. It covers every inch of the surface area. and it's short-lived and it moves on and it's sustainable. And diaries, I've just like you and Chris and people we know, I've kept a diary since I was 5 years old, and I've never stopped. It went from black and white marble notebooks to Zenga to WordPress to the Monsoon Diaries.
I love it.
And it's both personal and describes the way we move.
I love it. Fun fact, I had a Zenga as well.
Yeah, is it still up? Mine is still up.
No, I had Zenga Premium. I paid for lifetime, and the company is basically out of business. I'm sure it's somewhere. I hope no one ever finds it. It's so embarrassing.
For those of you out there, I'm an open book, Zenga.com/Soho. I'm actually looking at it right now. It's still up.
Oh my God.
Somebody had bought lifetime. A fan had bought a lifetime thing for me, and I've never met him. I'm very grateful. Yep, still up.
I think mine was a little Asian gangsta 69 faux show. No, I'm kidding. Wasn't too off from that.
ZZ, Asian X, ZZXX, right? And another one was Dumpling Dim Sum.
So, Dumpling Dim Sum is
the
better
most proud moment of my life.
Yeah, but this was a fun interview, and I'm really glad I had you on the show, and I hope to see some in the world. So everyone check out monsoondiaries.com for upcoming trips and to read all about his kind of crazy life through his blog. So thanks again, and I'll see all of you guys next week. See ya. Thank you for listening to the Travel Like a Boss podcast. If you want to hear more, including the bonus How to Choose the Perfect Niche episode, join our mailing list at travellikeabosspodcast.com. See you next week, and remember, if you want to travel like a boss, you need to be your own boss. So start your online business today and start living the lifestyle you've always dreamed of.